It was perfect. Perfect. Everything, down to the last minute details.
X-Men 97 was such a treat, and you know what, let's just get right into it. When I first heard that X-Men the animated series was getting revived, I'm gonna be honest, I was very skeptical because the Marvel shows from the 90s had a weird way of telling a story, especially the X-Men. Now, the 90s cartoons that I was familiar with was Spider-Man the animated series and the Incredible Hulk. That was only because I'm an early 2000s baby, okay? I could only see the reruns at the time. The X-Men just didn't pop up for me on the channel that I would watch the reruns on, so I did kind of miss out, but I watched Spider-Man and the Hulk, and the pacing of these shows are very similar in my opinion. I heard from my friends that did watch X-Men the animated series that it was the best out of all of these shows. Fast-paced storytelling, but still adapting the source material in a way where our tiny peep-sized brains could handle it. Now, when X-Men 97 was announced, I knew in order to make any opinion on this show, I had to watch the original series first, and I gotta say, it was amazing to watch. It didn't disappoint, and I am a Spider-Man stan, so the fact that I am going to say that X-Men did do a better job is crazy. Now, after watching the entirety of X-Men the animated series, I grew a bit of a bond with these characters and began to understand why some fans were a little worried about this show returning in today's world, because animated shows are not what they used to be at all. And I began to ask myself, how are they going to essentially continue the 90s animated series in 2024? Because I know they were not going to do the same format. Then, as we got closer to the show's release, something got a hold of a lot of people's attention that I'm gonna get into later. Then just a few days before airing, Marvel fired the writer. I'm not gonna lie, I was nervous. And before I knew it, the day of judgment was upon us. All right, let's get right down to business. Let me be very clear when I say this. X-Men 97 is a clear example that Marvel can have a team work on a project that not only want to make a show how they want to, but also know their stuff. This has got to be hands down the best X-Men media we have ever received besides the comics. This is the best adaptation, period. See, the story itself is a mixture of different stories and does things that you don't expect. I love the X-Men because of how unique some of their powers are and the drama that comes with it. In the show, we see love triangles, characters dealing with becoming parents, and characters dealing with grief. These people know that the X-Men are still regular people just like us, but just have incredible powers. This is actually something that, in my opinion, the original series didn't even cover that well. This pacing is perfect. It does kind of a blend of the fast-paced storytelling that the 90s show did and the more broken down way of storytelling that most shows do today, because man oh man, does a lot happen in this show. I mean, we have Magneto's redemption, him running the X-Men, and then his fall from grace. We found out that Jean was a clone named Madeline Pryor and was kidnapped by Mr. Sinister at some point in the original series. Then we have the Cyclops, Jean Grey, and Madeline Pryor love triangle. Then we have Rogue's triangle with Magneto and Gambit, the whole war on the mutant population by Bastion, which by the way shook me. Storm losing and regaining her powers. Jubilee even gets an episode just for her, which was very much needed for her character. And while most of this is happening, Professor X is still with the Shi'ar Empire after the events of the original series. So yeah, a lot is going on in only 10 episodes, which I could say after watching has me satisfied. The best part about it is that every member of the X-Men have some sort of part to play. The X-Men in shows or movies never get this type of recognition. If your name isn't Logan, Scott, Jean, Xavier, or Magneto, you don't get that time to show off. But here, this feels like an actual X-Men show, and I love it. This is how they should be represented, as a family, as a unit. The difference between the X-Men and teams like the Avengers is the relationships between the characters. For example, in the MCU, the Avengers were shown to be more like teammates than even friends. Not only that, anyone can be in the Avengers. Hell, anyone would help the Avengers at any given moment. Now let's look at X-Men 97. Throughout the show, we see that most of the time, all the characters are together and they try not to do anything alone. The conversations between them feel like conversations between siblings or something more. And unlike the Avengers, no one helps them. Okay, I'm gonna get into spoilers, so skip here if you don't want to get spoiled. Captain freaking America makes an appearance in this show just to tell Rogue that he can't go above and beyond to find the man possibly responsible for the annihilation of Genosha, which is insane to me. See, the Avengers never really had this problem except for Civil War. The X-Men face not just crazy strong villains, but also prejudice just because they are mutants. So they are pretty much all they have, and still are, in my opinion, the most formidable team in Marvel Comics, and it shows here. This show feels like it grew up a little bit, as if the team working on this had a firm understanding that most of the fan base were kids when the original series aired. Now most of us are adults, and the show takes a direction more towards deeper stories. Not only that, but the animation is really good. The fights are always looking fire. Now let's talk about the characters, starting off with Wolverine. I can't tell you how happy I am for Wolverine finally not being a main part of an X-Men story. This man needs some damn rest. But don't get me wrong, he's amazing. However, ever since the early 2000s, this man has been too focused on, in my opinion. When people think of the X-Men, 9 out of 10 of them think of Wolverine. He wasn't even an original team member, but here he is utilized in a more justifiable sense. Because remember, this is an X-Men show, not Wolverine. To be honest, he really is just hanging out in the background, but not to a point where he's forgettable. He has these little moments here and there where he gets to shine, so then these Wolverine fans won't get too unhappy, and I'm one of them. I don't feel like the spotlight is on any one particular person too much, and it feels good to have Wolverine here not taking the spotlight from anybody. Not only that, he isn't just down bad for Jean Grey like every other version of Wolverine is. Yes, he loves her, but also he respects the marriage between her and Scott Summers, even though it haunts him a little bit. Hell, he even is given a chance with Jean, but then just rejects her because he knows Jean and Scott still care for one another, even though there's all this confusion going on, which I'm gonna get to in just a second. Believe it or not, people were worried that Logan's character was gonna get ruined, not because of him, but because of another character. I'm talking about Morph. The team that worked on the show stated that Morph was non-binary, but that wasn't even a half of it. Most people were complaining because they were mad that the team mentioned that Morph and Wolverine had a close relationship, and you already know what people started thinking. Ha! Gay! Did you even watch the original series? What is wrong with you? Then I started seeing people say that X-Men are becoming too woke. Do you even know the X-Men? Morph is fine in this show. To be honest, he's way more involved here than he ever was, and it's cool. In the old series, he's presumed dead in the first episode, then is controlled by Mr. Sinister, and after that, he appears here and there. But in 97, Morph is actually a part of the team, and he's a pretty chill guy who just loves the X-Men, and they showcase Morph's powers in pretty cool ways. There's a scene at the end of the show where Morph fights as the Incredible Hulk, and I thought that was pretty cool. So yeah, Morph is represented fine in the show. Now we move on to another big surprise from the show, which is Cyclops. He is so cool here, and this shows why he calls the shots. From the very first episode, we see him use his visor in ways that we haven't really even seen before. Like, look at this. Not only that, he also isn't just the Boy Scout of the group. Here, he actually questions Charles more than the others, even though he probably has the most respect for him out of the entire group. On top of that, we see him struggle with his love for Jean, and in order to fully explain this, I have to tell you, Jean actually does stuff, man. Jean, for the first time in more than a decade, has shown to have a role other than being the person that became the Phoenix, being a love interest for Scott or Logan, or just being dead. She actually contributes to the story heavily. We find out that the Jean that we were with from the end of the old series till now is a clone, and with this plot point alone, we see both Cyclops and Jean grow into characters. Cyclops has to question which woman he's devoted to, whether it's the Jean that he's been in love with since the beginning, or the Jean that has those same memories but has his child. And with this, him questioning Charles causes him to doubt every move he makes moving forward. Jean has to deal with the fact that Cyclops isn't fully devoted to her and catches him in the mindscape kissing her clone. Also, she has to figure out which memories are hers and which memories are the clones, because they both share all the memories. This is drama done right, but pushes both characters in a light that we've never seen them in outside of the comics, and also makes them one of the most interesting characters, but not more interesting than Magneto. Look, if you watch this show and don't love Magneto, you're crazy. I always liked Magneto in almost everything he's in. In the comics, he's up there with Apocalypse and Dr. Doom when it comes to delivering lines, and seeing what it would be like for him to take over for Charles is very exciting, because we're talking about the same man who wanted to straight up killing humans because of his history with the Holocaust, but he also respects Charles and wants to honor his legacy. Seeing him as somewhat reformed was very cool. His speech at his trial is better than any other Magneto scene ever, in my opinion. This king also bagged the baddest X-Men. He's him, but after Genosha, oh boy, this man really showed that he don't play. He was on business straight up. Every scene with Magneto had me locked in. He was such a problem that Charles had to shatter his freaking psyche. Like, what is there left to say? He is the best character in this show, no question. However, he doesn't have the best scene. That goes to Gambit hands down. You see, people that don't know, Gambit is not someone to look over. Yeah, most of the time, he is a goofball that just wants to love on Rogue and everything, but deep down, he really go hard for his people, especially Rogue. Spoilers, yes, he dies, but he dies like a freaking hero. He destroys the Sentinel that is responsible for the death of thousands of mutants in one attack. This had me so hyped, yo. The only downside was the end of the episode.
I can't feel you.
Man, my heart. Damn. Now I could sit here all day and give nonstop praise, but I really want those who haven't gotten a chance to see this show to just give it a watch. It won't disappoint at all. Storm, Rogue, Jubilee, and the others were just as awesome. This is the type of project that Marvel should release on Disney Plus, something that is actually worth the subscription. The other Marvel shows just don't hit like this. And I know in the past I've praised Loki. Don't get me wrong, it's still really good, but X-Men 97 stomps it. It is the best Marvel TV series we have ever received on Disney Plus, to be honest. And you can see that the people working on this really care about these characters a lot, and it shows. If you take time and have the proper team, these shows will keep being not just good, but genuine and unique. I did hear that the writer of this season did get fired due to him being hard to work with, but with a story as good as this, I don't know, man. Only time will tell what the fate of the X-Men will be. If Marvel brings back more shows from the 90s, this kind of has me just a bit worried. X-Men 97 was so good because I think they found a way to bring nostalgia to a show and also have it grow up a bit for us. They didn't just rely on the nostalgia alone, and it makes a very awesome experience for the fans of old and new. There were so many cameos that I do believe that some of them might end up getting revivals as well. If they do, they better bring the same energy to my goat, because if not, I'm gonna start a riot. And I don't know about you, but this has me on an X-Men craze. I'm thinking about going through the X-Men movies before Deadpool 3 comes out, and that'll be my first huge project for YouTube, so let me know by clicking the like button if you want to see that. Hell, I might do it anyway. Deadpool and Wolverine better capitalize on the X-Men's popularity, because if this movie ends up being anything other than good, that'll be so sad. Okay, enough of me yapping. X-Men 97 is damn perfect. I love shit like this. They need to make writing at this caliber way more consistent. X-Men 97 gets a well-deserved 10 out of 10. I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace.